Hello everyone, it's Sasha again. We are continuing with this contact series. For today, we are not going to present a heavy lesson as we have with so many of the past ones, but we're going to instead talk about a few different concepts that we want to share regarding contact itself. Now, the first concept we want to talk about is something that has become much of a buzzword on your world, and it has to do with what you have called disclosure. As we understand the human definition of disclosure, it has to do with when the authority figures on your world will openly begin to talk about the reality of extraterrestrial contact, whether in present day or in the past. And this concept of disclosure, as we've said, has gained a lot of traction in recent years because many people from your governments and military, etc., have come out and made statements. However, we do find this concept quite interesting in a strange way, because our understanding of the human consciousness right now is that if someone, a military leader, a world leader, came on your television and announced extraterrestrials are real and they've been real for many hundreds of years, or whatever it is they want to say, your civilization, your people, would have some very unusual reactions. Some would not believe it because they don't believe anything the authorities say, yes. Some might yawn and say, yeah, we knew that, it's about time, and then go on with their business. A few may be shocked. A few may be in fear about it, but the reaction itself we see would be very varied. Now, our perspective is coming more from a type of anthropological one, meaning that my civilization, my people, we have done a lot of work with many different civilizations throughout time in helping them prepare to open to the contact experience. So we've seen the gamut, if you will, of different types of reactions, and usually we can predict quite accurately what the type of reaction would be. Your mass consciousness is very, very diverse. So we do anticipate there will be diverse reactions. However, we do anticipate that it's not going to be as big of a shock as it would have been, let's say, 40 or 50 years ago. The reason for that is very specific. The reason for it is because there are thousands of you on the planet already now who are doing contact work in the privacy of your own home or with small groups, and sometimes even with large groups, and you are having your own experiences that are very profound, and you're integrating them into your lives in a way that is integrating seamlessly, not only with your life, but with the flow of planetary energy. Now, if you've been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years, it's become so much a part of your life now that you do not give it a second thought. This is extremely significant because the more of you who are doing this type of work, of your own contact program, your own contact work, expanding your consciousness, meditating, etc., you are actually changing the fabric of your mass consciousness in such a way that you are creating a fertile soil, let's say, for the seeds of contact to be planted. This from our experience working with other civilizations, this is actually one of the most important things that can be done on a planet. And it is one of the most important things because it ensures a smooth transition. So if we were to say the reason why disclosure has not happened 30, 40, 50 years ago is because on the higher levels, that type of disclosure back at that time would not have served you very well. It actually, in our understanding, would have polarized you more. So there's been this long, drawn-out process. When is disclosure going to happen? When is disclosure going to happen? That has left many of you feeling frustrated. But that frustration has been a positive thing because it has allowed you then to take matters into your own hands and to do the work of planting the seeds and tilling the soil and creating the contact fabric to get it ready for this eventual shift that, in our estimation right now in 2019, as we speak to you, will come in a smooth way. We could not have said that even 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but there has been a big shift, if you will, in the contact fabric of your planet because of all of you that have been doing this work. So we've been talking about the quantum contact map in many of the previous sessions, and we talked about how this process of evolving your consciousness through the map and its different layers of experience eventually leads to the awakening process and the seeing of yourself through all life in the universe. This process that many of you have been experiencing without even being aware of it is what has been changing the paradigm. So congratulations and thank you to all of you who have been doing this work. These thanks and this gratitude is coming from my contact team and the many contact teams who have been working with your world for so very long now. Therefore, that brings us to another of the hot topics, if you will, which has to do with the idea of open contact. Many of you have been asking, when is open contact going to happen? And many people envision open contact being the ship landing in the football field or wherever it is in front of massive amounts of people and the ETs coming out to finally prove their existence. But that idea of open contact, we perceive, is no longer viable for your world, meaning that is the type of shock and awe contact that maybe would have happened 30, 40, 50 years ago along the lines of disclosure as we were talking about just previously. Instead now, what we see to be open contact has more to do with the kind of ongoing contacts that are happening between you humans who are doing the contact work and the ET teams who have been working with you for many years. So what would this type of open contact look like, or how would you experience it? And we would say that there has been a great deal of shift in the last few years, as evidenced by many, for example, photographs of actual ET beings that were taken during CE5 events. One such event was in one of the contact retreats that Lyssa and my contact team were a part of, in which the ET very clearly manifested in a photo next to Lyssa. That's one example. Those types of evidence, if you will, happening is becoming more necessary not to prove to the world that ETs are real, but to instead trigger the acceptance, if you will, within the contact team Because even though many of you are doing this work, sometimes there is a little piece of disbelief we sense in many of the contact teams, or the people in the contact teams, where even if a majority of them believes this experience, there's a part maybe that's a little bit resistant, or a little bit confused, or a little bit closed, or a little bit disbelieving that it could happen to them. Maybe it can happen to that team over there, but my team, I don't know if that will ever happen. So these types of events now, with photographs and other types of more tangible experience, we do see as ramping up in the years to come, but not for evidentiary reasons, not to prove the existence through evidence, but instead to shift the consciousness of the contact team itself to beginning to accept and embrace all levels of the contact experience, the inner and the outer simultaneously. So that's how we see this idea of open contact unfolding on your world. We do not, right now as we speak to you in 2019, we do not see there being a big event, so to speak, but instead a lot of significant events with individual contact teams who have built a harmonic in their energy, who are used to working together. And that will be the next step. It's already begun. Okay, one more thing we wish to talk about then. It has to do with, how shall we approach this? It has to do with the relationship between contact work and channeling. As many of you know, Lyssa teaches channeling within the US and Japan, and many of her students have found that there's an overlap between the contact experience and the channeling experience. Why is that so? Well, if we go back to the map here, and we go into the higher levels of the map, as we've been talking about before, and you begin that process of overlap, where perhaps beings that you perceive to be future selves or other aspects of you that feel literally like other yous in other realities begin to make their presence known. What's the next step? The next step is communication, because contact is not just viewing something, but it's being a participant of something, being part of it. And one of the ways to participate, of course, and to be part of the event is through communication. So if the beings are not always going to land in your backyard, but they do still want to communicate, then how is that going to be possible except through the channeling experience? Channeling in that sense has a very broad definition. We're not really going to make this a discussion about channeling, but we're simply going to point out to you that in the past, for let's say the purists, the ET contact researcher purists have wanted to separate. Contact is here and channeling is here. Channeling is still a little bit crazy, but contact is real. And therefore, they kept themselves kind of stuck in that box and not able to move forward. When you move forward, however, you have to move into the more rarefied states where consciousness begins integrating. And as consciousness begins integrating, it then starts communicating. Thus, you cannot avoid the idea of channeling, the elephant in the room, yes? So for those of you who are doing contact work and you feel that you're going to these deeper and deeper states, you are indeed going to get messages if you're not already doing so. That's a very broad definition of channeling. We are going to encourage you to open yourself to this next phase of communication and contact, because it is necessary your willingness is necessary for you to move to the next phase. We know it can be frightening, it can be disorienting to some of you, and all we can say is to be bold, to challenge yourself to be a pioneer. You may ask, how do I know that it's not just me, or it's not just my ego that is filtering or making up a message? We would say that as you get into these deep levels of contact, that you're going to learn what it feels like when it's smooth communication and when it is tinged by the ego, or tinged by fear, or tinged by whatever. You will learn to feel the difference, but you cannot learn to feel the difference until you allow the experience. So that is the next step. We are so very excited. The contact teams are standing by, so to speak, for this next step. We're very excited to assist you with this. And as you then embrace this more and more, this next level contact, we do see the idea of disclosure will become a moot point. It will become not so important, because you will have a very clear understanding and knowingness of what contact is, without needing the narrative to be given to you by an authority figure, which you would probably see is incomplete or distorted anyway. So go forth into the contact experience and know we are on the other side, so many of us assisting you. And let's see what happens together. Much love.